In today's episode, we have Luz Gonzalez with us, and she's going to talk about why you should consider starting with a high-ticket program before selling low-ticket offers. You will also get to hear why timing is everything when incorporating any type of new training, the 3 pillars to creating a stellar offer for your business, and how ads amplify what is already working in your business. And now, on with the show. Welcome to the Online Course Igniter podcast, where you'll hear from successful course creators and how they were able to turn their passion into a thriving online business empire. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Online Course Igniter podcast. Thanks for listening today. I have a special guest with us, Luz Gonzalez from Industry Icon, and she's going to talk about how to turn your online presence into high-ticket clients, which I think is a fascinating topic. There are many different business models out there and different ways to make money online. And when we talk about online courses, it can be anything from a low-ticket course up to high-ticket clients and consulting and coaching that goes along with your online course. And so I think this is going to be a great podcast to speak with her and find out a lot of great information in the high ticket world. So how are you doing today, Luz?
Doing fantastic. It's a new year. It's that new year energy, and I'm really excited to be here with you, Jeremy. Thank you for the time.
Yeah, definitely. It's great having you, and I'm excited to dive into this topic. This is something that interests me a lot, and so I can't wait to get to pick your brain and ask some questions that I have myself, and I know other listeners will have out there. But before we do that, why don't you just go ahead and take a minute and give us a little bit of backstory about yourself, where you come from, and how you got into this online business and online world.
You got it. And you hear me laughing a little bit because I didn't go to school thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be in like a digital marketer or in the digital space at all. I actually went to law school, and so my focus was international human rights law. I was in The Hague, part of a case where we were suing an ex-president of Liberia. So that's my background. Clearly, not a lawyer anymore. And I'm very happy about that. That was a great decision, and wound up doing what we do now, which is work with entrepreneurs, small business owners, coaches, consultants who want to bring their expertise to the world, who want to make the world a better place, and connecting that desire and that expertise that they have to actually, well, how do I do it? How do I go from this dream to I have money in the bank and people are excited to pay me? Specifically at the high ticket level, right? That's our focus. And I think many of you, and maybe even you, Jeremy, you guys will resonate with a little bit of my journey. I started with a lot of trainings online and all the webinars and courses and, events. I was a really good student, right? Like I was always the person that would do all the work. And so I would go to these trainings, and there was one training that I went to by a big name guru in the space. And I took 60 pages of notes. I still have those notes. I took those 60 pages of notes and I was like, I am going to be a success story because I am going to do everything that this big name guru is telling me what to do. And I started implementing those things and it just wasn't working. And at some point I felt overwhelmed and pretty frustrated because I was like, I'm doing the things I'm supposed to be doing and it's not working. And the thing that I think is missing, that I love to focus on, timing. Timing really, really matters. And so this big name guru was teaching us strategies that are really important, like, super complicated email sequences. But I was a beginner. Like I didn't need to even think about complicated email sequences in that way at that point. And so in my journey, I have gone through what it's like to be a beginner to now not being a beginner, making multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars through courses and knowing through the hardship of figuring out yourself that timing really is everything. And what you do when you do it really matters. And so sometimes we see some of these big name gurus implementing these strategies and it's like, oh, that sounds like the new shiny object syndrome, right? Like the new thing on the internet. And sometimes while we might get excited about that, is that the thing that's actually going to get your business up and running? For those of you that are starting to do this full time or want to do this full time, is it going to be the thing that's going to pay your rent? And so that's something that I really care about, because I think there are huge implications for people who are especially newer into the space. They are sold this dream and they go after it and like, burn the boats. And then the people aren't buying your course, or like the money's not coming in. And I really care about that, because these are real people that this is happening to. And so we work to make sure that that doesn't happen to these people that we really care about.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. This is something that I've thought about a lot myself is you see a training or you see something that you don't get to see all the experiences that guru or that expert has had before you got to the point
Mm-hmm.
of watching their video or their training. And so they've had a
Mm-hmm.
chance to try trial and error a lot of different strategies and things that have worked and haven't worked. And then they get to something that works really well, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily going to work for you, right? Especially the ones who have built up massive followings and they're telling you to do something.
Exactly.
But it's like, yeah, I don't have the following that you have. I haven't been doing it for 5 years. So
Can we get an amen on whenever you're listening to this? Tuesday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, like amen to that.
yeah, it's wild. So that's really cool. So what did those early days look like? Once you went through and you went through these trainings and you decided, okay, this isn't really working for me. Where did the light switch turn on? Where did you realize like, okay, this is what I need to do? And then this is when things really started working out for you.
So if you guys could see me, I'm very kinesthetic. I would like pull up a whiteboard and make a drawing of a triangle. And the triangle would be your value ladder. So I want you guys to imagine this triangle where the base is at the bottom and the tip's at the top. So at the top, this is going to be our pricing hierarchy. And so with our pricing hierarchy, towards the top, we're going to have premium pricing, and towards the bottom, we're going to have free to cheap. And then we work our way from free to super cheap all the way up to your premium pricing. Where I began, and what I think a lot of the big name gurus in our space, what they encourage people to do, and I was encouraged, I was told, like, if I were beginning, like, this is what I would do, is I started focusing on the low ticket stuff. Like, I started with a low ticket membership, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to work so hard. I'm going to just like do this. And the thing with low ticket is, and like you talked about, Jeremy, like if you have a huge audience, great. That, like, what we like to say a lot is one size does not fit all. Like, your specific next steps for you are going to be different from the next guy and from the next girls. We just really have to look at context. So for my context, where I was starting, I used to be a lawyer. I didn't have this like audience of 10,000 or 50,000. I was starting from, people that I knew. And so for me to bring in, dozens of sales at a low ticket to mid ticket, it didn't mean anything, right? Like, that's not how you grow a truly sustainable business. So for your question, like, when did it change, is when I realized, although it seems a little counterintuitive, I believe, and this is what we teach our clients, especially when you're beginning and you haven't gotten to a place where you're bringing in anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 consistently, your focus should be on high ticket. You should begin focusing on high ticket. Bring in that, those clients that are really excited to work with you, serve them at a higher level, have the abundance of not feeling like stressed because you don't know how you're going to pay for your bills, or like you're like, oh my God, I'm working so hard for someone to pay $100 for this thing that I created. So start at the high ticket level. Once you build in that abundance of time and money where you're bringing in 5 to 10K and you feel calm and you're like, this is working, that's when we start focusing on the mid ticket and the low ticket. Because the thing that I don't think is shared enough about the especially low ticket isn't about making money until you hit a specific benchmark, right? Like, you hit a specific number of people that are on your email list, on your social media following, right? And then you hit sort of tipping point where actually it does make you money. But until you have that huge audience, it's really the purpose for a low ticket and mid ticket, especially low ticket, is to qualify people. It's not to make money. It's to qualify people. So you bring them in to your. We have 5 different categories that we share with our clients. So we're going to be looking at your main, which is going to be about 2,000 to 5,000. Like you qualify people, you bring in people at the right time, which is usually not at the very beginning if you're a beginner, and you use very strategically your mid-ticket and your low-ticket offerings and your free offerings. So you work people so they can self-select along your value ladder. So that was something that was really important that I learned. And it's something that we feel is so important to share, especially with people that have been struggling or feel frustrated and overwhelmed, or they're just like, it's not working. And it's probably not working because you're probably implementing the right step at the wrong time. And that can make all the difference.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess the next logical question, I guess, for you and just a general question is, how did you go about getting your first client or your first couple of clients? Because when you think about going straight to high ticket, and just real quick before we move forward to lay the foundation, what would you consider, say, low ticket pricing, mid ticket, and high ticket pricing?
So low ticket, I'm going to call anything that's below $100. Mid ticket, I'm going to call it, 101 to, let's call it $500. The main one, just like, high ticket that we like our people to focus on is going to be about that 2,000 to 5,000 sweet spot. And then anything above is going to be premier. So the sweet spot that we aim for is the 2,000 to 5,000 to bring in those first few clients. And then it becomes very easy to have those premier offerings that then are above the 5,000 to 20,000, 30,000, etc.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm glad you clarified that because we have listeners from all walks of life listening to this
Mm-hmm.
podcast. People who might consider
Mm-hmm.
$100 a high ticket price. So,
Correct.
um,
Yeah.
we are talking about definitely a good amount of money for the offer that is being made. So, I guess the logical question here is, when you're just starting out and someone says that you need to go to high ticket first, and you don't have a big following, you don't have a big audience, I guess the fear would be, how are you going to get someone to buy into something that is, say, $5,000 when you don't really have that reputation out there in the world? How are you going to sell yourself on that?
That was the question I had, right? I would hear people talking about this elusive high ticket space. And it's like, but how? How do I actually do that? And how do I, if I'm new to this, get someone to believe that, what I'm offering is worth 5,000, 2,000, whatever it might be. And so the structure, it matters. It matters both for the person receiving your product, and it matters for you. The confidence that you have when you show up to a conversation when you're going to sell something from 2,000 to 5,000 bucks. There's the internal game, the confidence, and then there's the skill game. And those are 2 games that you master, right? As we're doing this new thing, there are going to, again, I used to be a lawyer in law school. I wasn't taught marketing. I wasn't taught sales. I wasn't taught about a ton of the things that are, really important in these conversations. And so as a beginner, you're thinking, okay, well, how am I going to do this? So we have these 7 steps that break down into 3 main pillars. So the first pillar is build. The second pillar is monetize. The third pillar is scale. The first pillar is going to include 3 steps. The first step is just making sure that you have alignment, that, in 3 years and 5 years and 10 years, you're not going to wake up and be like, I hate that I'm doing what I'm doing. Like, you build that sort of the golden handcuffs. So we want to make sure you don't do that. Then we begin into steps number 2 and steps number 3, which are within the first pillar. Step 2 is the money making step. One of the core things that happens in step 2, we have a framework that's called USGAW. So that's going to be USGAW. This is the profitability test to know that you're building a course, that you're building a program that people will actually pay $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for, which is the question that we have internally, where it's like, how am I going to charge this much money? Like, how are people going to pay for it? Does anybody even want it? Well, that's a fantastic question you should be asking. Do people want this, and will they pay? So as we go through the USGA assessment, there's going to be 5 factors that go into play. And if you guys want additional training on this, you can go to our YouTube, just look for Industry Icon, or just look for USGA. It's going to be probably the only video in all of YouTube that's about USGAW. And so that's where we cover the 5 factors. So the U stands for urgency, S stands for specificness, G stands for group. And it's not just any group, it's an identifiable group that has tens of thousands of people that come together on the internet that you can have access to. The 4th element here is going to be A. So that's going to be ability, and W is going to be willingness. So that's going to be urgency, specificness, group, ability, willingness. How do you create something that's going to bring in 6 figures, 7 figures, etc.? You have to pass the USGA test. So are you bringing something to the market that, has some sort of level of urgency behind it? Are you one of many? Or are you like, no, I actually solve a problem that people urgently want solved yesterday? This is where we look at the principle of, are you a painkiller or are you a vitamin, right? We want to be the painkiller, because people will make sure that they find whatever they need to make their pain go away. A vitamin's like, ooh, that's nice to have, but I don't need it now. It's like, I'll get it next month, maybe next year, right? You don't want your course. You don't want the thing that you're bringing to the market to be a vitamin. There's more friction there. So we want to ask the urgency question, then we want to ask the specificness question. And this one, especially for people who are newer to the space, I know some of you are going to be like, I'm different. And I said the very same thing when it came to this element. Are you working to solve a problem that everybody has? Or are you solving an identifiable problem for a specific group of people that has specifics behind it, right? So as business people, we want to be asking, are we solving this for a specific group of people? And we want to make sure that we're making money. So if you go too broad, what you've done is you've micro-niched without even knowing it, right? So, and some of you are going to hear what I say right now, and you're going to be like, oh my God, that's me. What happens when you go too broad is the only people who buy your stuff are your friends and your family. And after you run out of your friends and family, it becomes really hard to sell to strangers, and you don't know how to do it, and it feels like pulling teeth. For those of you that are like, oh my God, that's me, yeah, you're right. I created this course, and the only people that bought it were people that already knew me, but selling the tests that we want, say, our clients to be able to pass is you are successfully able to sell to complete strangers on the internet. And when they hear about the value of what you're providing, it's a no-brainer. And they go, absolutely, I'm super excited to pay you thousands of dollars for this thing that you've created. To do that, we need to pass the USGA test. So that's specificness. We want to make sure that there are tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of people that gather together on the internet, need to congregate together around this issue, around this problem. And not only do they need to do that, you need to be able to access them as a group. So that's 3. 4 is going to be, do they have the money to pay for your products and services? As if you are going after 2-year-olds who have, they just want better toys. And again, we just have to go through the entirety of the USGA test. So do they have the ability? Well, no, a 2-year-old does not have money to pay for your products and services. So we want to make sure that we're going after a market initially. And we call this within our program the Tesla principle. What I hope you guys take away from what I'm saying here is timing. The right strategy at the wrong time will completely change the game for you. So timing is everything. We've been doing this long enough that I can hear some of your responses being like, oh, but I want to work with people that don't have, resources. Yes, you absolutely can do that. And you can build scholarship programs, and you can do ways. And if you yourself are struggling to bring in those 5 to 10K consistently, that means every single month without struggle, then we need to really focus on your business, right? So ability? Do they have the ability? Do they have the money to pay for products and services? And finally, W, they may have the ability, but they just don't have the willingness. We want them to be willing. And how do we measure willingness? Well, they've done this in the past. Like, this group of people have consistently bought this thing in the past, right? So we want to have some market evidence that what we're doing, we're not just hoping and just like crossing your fingers and hoping it works. That's a way to, I don't know, play some like board game or something, but it's not a way to run your business. That's one of the tests that people can look to say, how do I have, one, the confidence, and then two, the skill set to sell something at a high ticket level and have people go, absolutely, like, here's $5,000. I can't wait to work with you. And it touches on step number 3, which is where you actually put together your offer. And this is how you name it, how you price it, how you position yourself, how you package it. All of that goes into step number 3. And then that's how you both have the skill set and the confidence to put something together, even though you're a beginner. Doing this should be as simple as following the recipe for creating a cake. This is what we tell our clients. Maybe you've never made a chocolate mousse cake before. And if I just said, you have to make a chocolate mousse cake or I'm taking your house, you'd be like, shoot, like, you're taking my house. This is terrible. But if I said, here's the recipe, then you'd be like, okay, I know what to do. And like, that's how this should be. Again, building a business shouldn't be about like just hoping, oh, I hope this chocolate mousse cake comes out. You're like, no, here are the steps. So step number 3 is where all of those different elements, which it's like your naming, the pricing, the packaging, all come together. And so by the end of steps number 2 and 3, and if you guys want, there's an entire training that's totally free about the 7 steps. Once you do steps number 2 and 3, then you have both the skill set and the confidence to say, okay, hey person, I'm super excited to work with you. And so, like I was mentioning, there's Deanne, she's one of our newer clients. She was like, I don't even know how I would offer something for $3,000. And after going through steps number 2 and number 3, which I've been telling you guys about, she sold her first $3,000 program, right? So we had somebody who was in yoga, for 30 years experience in yoga, had never sold anything over like $400. She went through the steps and, sold for close to $3,000. Somebody who was a doula, had never sold anything over $100, went through these steps that I'm teaching you guys, step 2 and 3, the USGA step, the Tesla principle, all of these things, and then had her first, pay in full. And like, this will literally change your life because you will forever know how to have the confidence and the skill set to sell to complete strangers on the internet or in person. We really don't care about, I think that there's this false differentiation between people online and offline. There's still people. And at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're solving problems. So if you know how to solve a problem, whether it's online and offline, however you're getting your audience, if your course solves a problem for very real people, and you went through the USGA test and you position it and name it in a way that really shows that you're listening to the market, and it's exciting for you, then it, again, should be as simple as like making a chocolate cake.
Are you struggling to create your first online course? Do you have an idea for a course topic, but don't know how to get started? It can be hard trying to figure out everything that goes into course creation. How do you outline your course? How do you set up the technology to create the content? How do you publish it so that you can begin helping others and making money immediately? We know it can be difficult for first-time course creators. That is why we have designed the Start Your First Course Challenge. Our goal is to help you get that online course published within a couple of weeks. That means that you can get your digital product to market without wasting a bunch of time. We will show you how with the easiest methods possible that we have learned and crafted over the years. You'll learn how to choose a topic, outline your course, script what you want to say, and then record the material. After that, you'll discover how to set up the platform and publish it, all with a simple system that's guaranteed to get you results fast. Beat your procrastination by taking action today. Go to startyourfirstcourse.com now to sign up. That's startyourfirstcourse.com. See you in the challenge. Okay, so awesome. We have our 3 pillars, which is to build, monetize, and scale. And under that first pillar is your alignment, your money making, your USGA test, and the offer creation. And so once you go through that first process, you have a general idea of what you're creating, who you're creating it for, if it's something that you're going to be interested in for the long term so that you're passionate about it and continue forward. Once you have that information and you're ready to go out and sell, what are some ways to actually find the people or to locate the traffic or to sell that information to those people?
Great. So this is when we go into step number 4, which is seeing your question leads us directly to 4. We have steps 4, 5, 6, and 7. So I'll just very briefly touch upon each of those so you guys know what they are. And then we'll really focus on step number 4, which goes directly to Jeremy's question. So step 4 is going to be, how do you become your ideal client magnet? How do you magnetize these people? And it's going to be through your branding and your marketing. They're both really important. They're like sisters, and you need both of them. Then step number 5 is going to be your sales. You can have the best branding and marketing in the world. You can have the most amazing product. You could have done all of the right work, but if your sales game is off, it is going to be hard, right? And all of these, they build on each other. So step 2 builds on 1. Step 3 builds on 1 and 2. 4 necessitates 1 and 3. 5 necessitates 1, 2, 3. So then we move on to 6. 6 is where you start, like, it's working. By step 5, you've now graduated to you're making those $5,000 to $10,000 consistently. Like, it's working. Then we go to scale. So monetize is going to be 4 and 5, which is going to be really focusing on your branding and your marketing and your sales. The third pillar is going to be we start scaling. So this is where you bring on your first VA. This is where you start using systems. Step 6, we're also looking at partnerships, right? Like you're scaling what's already working. Step 7, this is where we start building complicated funnels. This is where we start doing ads. This is where like all of that more fancy, more expensive, like all the stuff that we've shared up to step number 5, it doesn't require this crazy investment where you're like, some of you are paying hundreds of dollars per month for a product that is barely selling. And it's heartbreaking for me when we hear those stories. For you to get to those consistent 5 to 10K months, like none of that is happening. And it's only at step 7 where like you're consistently making money. Then you're like, okay, this is working. How do we expand what's already working, right? I want to touch on ads, and then I'll go back, Jeremy, to your question. Ads are an amplifier. They amplify what works or what doesn't work. If your offer isn't working, it's gonna not work faster, right? Like it's going to fail pretty quickly. And maybe it's your copy, maybe it's your offer, maybe it could be a number of things. And so that's why you've gone through the steps. But if it's not working, it's going to feel really, really frustrating. So the only time that we really want to be touching step number 7 is when you have validation. You have money in the bank. Your thing is selling. And then we're like, okay, now we're going to turn on and we are going to expand something that already works, right? So, because I just think we have heard from people who have gone tens of thousands of dollars, like just trying, like if I just put more money behind my ads, it's going to make my course sell. No, like maybe your course isn't selling because there's something fundamental where we maybe skipped a step 2, a step 3. And throwing more money at ads isn't going to help your course sell faster. So back to your question, which is step 4. How do we find the people? And again, it's so critical. We have to go step by step. So I'm assuming now that I'm giving you this advice, knowing that you have done step 2, that you have done step 3, and that these things are solid, right? You will have done market research. So you know who your people are. By this point, by step number 4, it's clear who your audience is. You have some idea where they hang out and where they hang out. Okay, so Facebook is a fantastic platform for finding people. Facebook groups and an incredible asset to your business if you know how to use it well. And I'll just say something really quick about not being creepy. Like, let's not be spammy or creepy or yucky or any of those things, which I'm sure you've had people. I know I've had people just like hit me up on Messenger and be like, buy my stuff, buy my stuff. That's not how we do things. I encourage you to be on the internet or in person, right? We would never do that in person. Why do we think it's okay to do that on the internet? So what you are going to do is you are going to build an audience through trust and value and relationship. And you can grow, right? So we have another framework that we use for these two concepts here. Like, you can be the tugboat or you can be the lighthouse. The tugboat means you're like going out in stormy seas and you're trying to like find client by client, and you're just like, there's so much work because you're like going after them. What we love for you to do is to be the lighthouse. That means it is so clear who you're for that when people see your stuff, right, your branding and your marketing, they go, ooh, that's me, I need that. And so this is where your branding is super important. That's the first step. Your branding needs to be solid. When people look at your stuff, whether it be on Facebook, whether it be on Instagram, whether it be your website, whether it be YouTube, whether it be podcast, wherever it is, it should be very clear who you help, what you help them with, and how they can take the next steps, right? That's called the Story Brand. The Story Brand is a great book for you guys to read. And so there, he talks about the grunt test. And so you have 5 seconds. And in 5 seconds, people need to figure out 3 questions. They need to know who you help, what you help them with, and how to take next steps to have their problem solved. And this happens with your online presence and offline presence. Anywhere your business shows up, we need to pass the grunt test. So if you are on Instagram, you need to pass the grunt test. If you are on YouTube, you need to pass the grunt test. Or your website needs to pass the grunt test. Before anybody starts scrolling, you need to pass the grunt test. And then we look at marketing, right? So what's the purpose of marketing? The purpose of branding is to create an experience, and the purpose of marketing is to create relationships. So you now have your voice, you have your brand, you have how it is that you communicate with people, and you have consistency across platforms. Again, whether it's online, offline, wherever you are, there's consistency. Then we look at marketing, which is creating relationships. And so you are, posting content, you are communicating with people. You have to figure out, do your people hang out on Facebook? Well, then you should be on Facebook. Some of you are like, oh my gosh, but I'm not on TikTok. Your people aren't on TikTok. You shouldn't be on TikTok. So you have to answer, where are my people? And then it actually becomes really simple, right? Like by this point, you know exactly where your people are, how to find them, what platforms. We have trainings for all these things. So if we have a training that's free around just this question, like there's an entire like a 2-3 hour training on just social media platforms, which ones you need to be on, and how do you brand yourself so people find you and say like, oh, I need to work with them. Then you're like, your website totally matters. People say that your website doesn't matter. I completely disagree with them. You need a website. Do you need to pay $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 to a developer to make like a world-class website? No, you just need a website that does its job. Your online marketing is your most faithful and hardworking employee. But for your online like presence to work for you, you need to set it up to succeed. And so that takes a little bit of thinking, but it's not that hard, and a little bit of setup. And once you've set it up, the ROI is pretty incredible.
Awesome. I love it. Yeah, this is some really great in-depth information, and it seems like you know this industry really well. And I feel like a lot of people are going to get a lot from this podcast, and there's so much more to find out about you and your business. You mentioned you had some trainings available. We'll make sure that we post everything in the show notes so that people can find that easily. But if people want to find out where these trainings are or how to find out more information about you and your business, where can they do that at?
So just Industry Icon, that's going to be with a K. So if you guys go to industryicon.com, we have an entire hub that's called the Free Resources Hub. Everything there is free. We have free books, we have free trainings, we have a ton of free things. Then when you're done with the entire free hub, if you guys want more stuff, we have a $7 how to build packages that sell like crazy, specifically how do you build high ticket packages that sell like crazy. So many of the questions that we've covered here, if you guys want additional instruction, super cheap, $7. It's on the website. We have a $1 training if you're a small business owner that specifically serves, a local audience, or if you're anybody who serves a local audience and you want to bring in more people to your course, your programs, right? The thing about courses is, I know all of you here are interested in have courses. What I love about courses is that they work so well when you use them as like a hybrid, when you have your course and your services. I love that pairing. You guys can also find me just Luz C, like cat, Gonzalez on Instagram. You can find us on YouTube. We have a podcast newsletter. You guys can sign up for our newsletter on our website. So you can either look for Industry Icon, and that's, again, icon with a K, or you can look for me specifically, Lucy Gonzalez. My middle name is a C. And you will find, again, we have a ton of trainings. We have a 3-day boot camp that you guys can take that's ready to go that you could do right now. So because of my journey, Jeremy, and because of how frustrated I was, and because I just felt like, to some extent, I don't know that anybody does this on purpose, but I think a lot of people are can be misled online. And they're very real people whose money, like, sometimes you're like, this is the investment I have, like, this is the money that I've been saving. And if it leads you the wrong route, I find that to be unacceptable. And so because of my own journey that I went through, and I did all the things, and I was like, oh, I'm going to be such a good student. What we wanted to do is we wanted to create such a plethora of resources that people, like, if people make money from our free stuff, fantastic. If after that you're like, I want to buy some courses, whether it's $1 or more, like, it's like, we really just want to put out good content that actually gives people the information that they need to make the best decisions for themselves, and just just come from a place of real integrity and service and value. And I think that can't lead you astray when you do that. So that's our philosophy.
Yeah, I love it. That's a great philosophy to have. And I love your business model. I think you're doing a lot of great things. And I'm actually going to go dive into some of these free resources myself, because it sounds like some great information there. So thank you so much for all the wealth of knowledge that you've shared with the audience today, Luz.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me, Jeremy. And you guys, make sure you get your friends to subscribe to this podcast. It's an awesome podcast. Make sure to share and make sure to send Jeremy some thank yous for the work that he's doing, and how he's providing value to you all, just out of the goodness of his heart. So sending you lots of love, Jeremy.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Luz. You can find out more about her and her business by visiting industryicon.com, or you can get the show notes of this episode along with links and resources by visiting onlinecourseigniter.com/69. See you all next week. Thank you for tuning in to the Online Course Igniter podcast. Make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening so that you don't miss an episode. If you would like to learn more marketing strategies and how to sell your online course, then also check out our free community where we share tips, tricks, and tutorials at onlinecourseigniter.com/community.